All right. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Fantasy Football Champs After Dark. We are not quiet. We are not civil. We are not anything like that. We are loud. We are obnoxious, and we will be in your face. We're also a proud member of the Full Time Fantasy Podcast Network, now 16 podcasts strong, 30 hours of podcasting a week. We're just putting a lot of info out there and a lot of people out there giving you great info. So definitely check out the Full Time Fantasy Podcast Network and get a lot of great info from you. We got a special guest tonight on tonight's show. But before I get to him, let me bring on my co-host, Mr. Andy Singleton. How you doing tonight, Andy?
I'm good, Jim. What's up? We're missing Frank, so I get a lot more time to talk tonight. John Laub is here, my co-host from the NFL Draft Profiles. I just saw him check in. Bob Long, good friend of mine, good friend of yours, good friend of ours, good friend to fantasy football, FSWA award winner, 2018 best publication. I was super excited. I felt like I kind of got some of that award because Bob and I have had so many talks over the years, and he's really just been a good friend. So I'm happy to have him tonight. I turned down other engagements to be here, so good thing because Frank bailed on us. So let's welcome in Bob.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. And yes, I'm honored that you took away the missus. We haven't had to chat with the missus a little bit there to welcome her to the event. But thanks for having me, guys. Honored to be here. Excited to be a part of the Full-Time Fantasy Network podcast network as well. You can hear that on Sunday nights, usually for the Fantasy Football Consistency Show. But again, guys, thanks for having me and looking forward to a fun evening.
Okay, Bob, but I got to ask you, for anybody who's been hiding under a rock forever now, why don't you tell the people a little bit about what the consistency guide is all about and what does Mr. Bob Long bring?
Well, if you've played fantasy football for at least a couple of years, I assume, and you haven't been winning, but you've been that player, maybe that fantasy owner who seems to pick good players, but you're not really getting to the playoffs. You're missing by a few games. Maybe your team just basically stinks. Whatever the case may be, if you're not winning a championship, the concept could be the fact that maybe some of your players are inconsistent. And if you don't know what I'm talking about that guy that at the end of the year, you look at the total draft or total fantasy points and you see a player ranked in the top 10 and you go, man, I had that guy and my team didn't do anything. It could be the fact that they were inconsistent, even though they scored a lot of fantasy points, because getting 25 one week and 5 the next, and then 20 and maybe 6, that's where the inconsistency comes into play. At the end of the year, the points look great. You're averaging 12 points a week, but if you're not doing it consistently enough, that could be what is hurting you. And the Fantasy Football Consistency Guide puts all of that information. Think Fantasy Football Magazine you're going to buy on the shelf, but this is every bit of information has about the consistency. There's 175 plus player profiles of the consistency information for each of these players, 3-year data. Also, it shows your home versus away, how consistent they are on the road or at home against top 10 defense, their average or their clutch games they earn per week. So you can see if they were a second half consistent player or maybe they tailed off in the second half. But all that information is in the guide. And that's what the guide will do for you, is help. It's that fries to your Big Mac. Like you go full-time fantasy to get all your big data, but then you come and get the fries. That's the consistency guide.
I'll tell you, Bob, that ever since I got the consistency guide, it's been sitting right in my library. Well, actually, it's the same thing, laboratory, library. For me, it's the same thing.
Laboratory.
It's been sitting in there since I got it. And every day I'm always reading on a new player or a new concept that you put into it. Excellent work. And heck, that's why you won the award last year. Yeah. The last ever award of the FSWA. They don't exist anymore. So
they don't?
Well, no, now they're the FSGA, Fantasy Sports Gaming Association.
FSTA changed.
Right.
It's the FSTA that changed to the FSGA. FSWA is Fantasy Sports Writers of America.
Oh, yeah, right. Okay. I got all this damn acronym and
yeah, it get me all crazy. If it was the FSWA, you won. right?
Yeah, FSWA. Yeah.
Yeah.
FSTA gives away site awards, not publication and articles.
Right.
That's FSWA.
I get them all freaking backwards.
I
Because
don't
you've
have a
won so many, you don't know. It's
I don't
fine.
have a
that's me,
publication.
Mr. Winner.
I don't have a publication, but Expand the Box Score is coming for you.
There you
And
go.
I'm working hard in the laboratory, as were you. Pinky and the Brain reference, if anybody.
Well,
remembers
actually, I
that.
work hard in the laboratory, but okay.
Yeah.
You can work hard wherever you want. That's okay. I do want to say hi to everybody in the chat room. Thanks for coming out and listening to us. Definitely, if you got any questions, shout them out there. We'll get to them. But let's hit some of the news and notes that we've been hearing over the last week. And, here's one that steps right out. Miles Sanders been dealing with this hamstring injury, missed all of OTAs. They're going to bring him in slowly into training camp. He's a rookie, guys. And I'll start with you, Bob. What's your thoughts here on Miles Sanders? Are you high on him, or you think this really puts him behind the bubble, getting off to this slow start?
2 words, man. Well, 2 words for 2 different people. Either you can talk about not Royce Freeman, Rashad Penny and Sony Michel from last year. Both of these rookies started off super slow, didn't get into camp on time, were injured, had a slow start to the season, and it was late in the season before either one of those guys kicked in. I think you're looking at the same thing. If it does anything, it just helps my Jordan Howard value that I have in all of my best ball drafts from earlier this spring skyrocket, which is good. But, this is such an important time for the rookies. And when they're missing out on this kind of stuff and injuries are a part of it, it's just a bad scene. And, it's tough when you're in that. But me, I'm not a big fan of rookies because they haven't proved their consistency in the NFL. So I'll probably stay away from Miles Sanders at this point.
Well, I've been feeling that a lot myself. I thought everybody was a little too high on him. But what's your take, Andy?
I actually first labeled him like this year's Rojo, and I got a ton of flack. That was back maybe like December, January. And it was just because people were starting to like elevate him to like top 3 in the class. And this was really before I dug deeper into him. Once I did that, I was like, wow, I'm sold. He pushed for my top running back in the class, definitely into that top 3. I'm glad you mentioned Rashad Penny though, Bob, because I would say hopefully he could be more closer to Penny. I'm not expecting a ton rookie year. I mean, we're going to get into this later on in the on the clock segment, but the Eagles brought in Jordan Howard. They're trying to get back to the Super Bowl and win another Super Bowl. Carson Wentz is trying to prove he's got just as big of a dick as Nick. So, it's like, I don't think they're going to care that Sanders is their rookie, that they put the draft capital in, all that kind of stuff. They got Jordan Howard, who's basically been a 1,000-yard rusher. Every year he's been in the league, double-digit touchdown guy. Like, it's just a different offense this year than what they've been in the past. So for those reasons, I'm not saying Sanders can't have success this year. I just don't want to pin my hopes to it. So I'm kind of being a little cautious when it comes to Miles Sanders for his rookie season. You look across the country, and Josh Jacobs, I talked about him last week or 2 weeks, I forgot what it was, but that's the rookie I want to, put everything I have into just because of the way the situation's lining up for him. And I mentioned the stat the other day on a 5-yard podcast, 5-yard rush podcast. And I think I mentioned it here too, that, Gruden's last time he's had a rookie running back like this was Cadillac Williams, and he gave him the ball like 290 times. I'd much rather take Josh Jacobs than Miles Sanders if I'm targeting rookies, and even David Montgomery to that effect.
And then, you got to take into a fact that, Doug Peterson being the coach, that he's always used the committee, at running back. Now, a lot of people say, oh, but he never had a running back like Miles Sanders. And while that may be true and that may end up changing it, I have to say that the fact that he's had a bad hamstring, all OTAs, and they're pulling him along slowly. Look, for a rookie, there's nothing better than being on the field for every freaking snap you can get. Any snaps you miss always hurt you. Doesn't matter where they are, when they are. Anytime you're not on the field, whether you're in the classroom or even on the sidelines, none of that helps you. Being on the field is what helps you as a rookie. So if he's not on the field, it's absolutely going to hurt him. At the very least, it's going to get him off to a slow start. So I am not buying him, especially where some of the people are starting to buy him now. So hopefully this trends down. Let's go on to the next piece of news. And again, we've been talking about this a lot, but people still are concerned. Let's talk about Todd Gurley and his arthritic knee, because the trainer came out and said, yeah, there's an arthritic, problem in the knee, and we know it. And everybody freaked out, and Darrell Henderson zoomed up into the 5th round. And, I think that's a freaking joke. But again, we'll go to you first, Andy. What's your thoughts here on Gurley and Henderson?
I'm kind of torn because it is kind of scary. It is kind of worrisome. I mean, I was, kind of shocked to realize that Gurley's just going to be 25 in August. Like, he's still 24. He's still a baby. Like, so to have such a negative condition is really kind of troubling and worrisome.
It came from his torn ACL that he had in college. That's what happens when you get a break. Sometimes it forms arthritic, tendencies pretty much right away.
Yeah, no, I get all that. But my point being that it just feels like, wow, this is really, I feel like it's overblown. And at the same time, I feel like maybe it's, underestimated at the same time. So I'm really kind of confused. Regardless, either way, I don't think Henderson's necessarily in line for like the full Lions share of everything that we've seen from Gurley the last couple of years. I don't think he's of the same caliber of a player right off the bat as Gurley to even command that kind of a workload. I know he had it in college. I know I spoke highly of him. I know I said he was one of the few, if not the only prospect in this year's class that has an elite skill and trait, and that's his home run hitting ability. But to me, that's it's not enough to say I'm going to plug him in as the workhorse. And I think it's just I think it's dangerous to just assume that, especially when you see some of the other guys there with Malcolm Brown and John Kelly, and that's assuming that Todd Gurley doesn't play at all. So if they're careful with him, and maybe he gets 200 carries this year as opposed to the nearly 300 he's been averaging, it's still a ton of carries, and that's not leaving a lot left for others.
Well, look, of course they're going to, the number of carries is going to come down. He's not going to see 300 touches again. That's just not there. And that's smart of them. But now they know what they're dealing with. They have a better handle on what they have to do. We won't see him at all during training camp, at least not on the field. We won't see him during preseason. And that'll just mean people will start to freak out more. He's currently going in some drafts in the 3rd round. One of the guys in the chat, Henry Muto, who has been a very big winner in high stakes fantasy football leagues a few times. He's worried about him, but he got him in the beginning of the 3rd round. I can't worry about that. Look, one of the things that everybody worries about is the number of touches. And if you look at the number of touches he had in his games last year, he had 9 games of over 20 touches. But then he had, 5 out of his last 8 games, he had less than 20 touches a game. But in those 8 weeks where 5 of them he had under 20 touches, he was still the number 2 running back in the league over that period. He was still averaging over those 8 games 26.2 fantasy points a game in PPR leagues. Again, we look at Alvin Kamara with the fewer touches and what he does with it. Why don't people wrap their head around the fact that Gurley with fewer touches can do the same thing? Because he's still going to be the goal line back in an offense where he's going to get plenty of chances to score touchdowns. And I easily see him going over 10 touchdowns again this year. I just don't see why everybody's bailing on him and jumping on Henderson. I think Henderson has a chance to get maybe 8 to 10 touches a game, maybe. Like you mentioned, Malcolm Brown is still somebody they like. They want to get him involved as well. So to grab Henderson in the 5th round, to me, is just ludicrous. I just can't get behind that in any way, shape, or form.
Well, I'll add this just on Henderson's behalf and to his benefit. If there's one back that could do more with less and doesn't need that full, that volume, I think Henderson is that guy because he is a true home run hitting threat from anywhere. But I agree with you. I think Gurley's just way too in play, and he's explosive in his own right. So I'm fine with the limited touches, and he's pushing down to the 3rd round in one of the best offenses. And like you said, double-digit touchdowns probably on on the stat sheet. So that's becoming a tremendous value for 2019 drafts right now. Bob, what do you think?
I have so many questions about this because you know what this is starting to remind me of is the Andrew Luck situation from a couple years ago. Every day there's a little something we learn one way or the other. You know, why is anybody surprised that their trainer says he has an arthritic knee? We've known that since the playoffs. And first off, why is a trainer telling us this and not a doctor for the team? So, you know, when you hear this kind of stuff, and this is what we went through with Andrew Luck, he's fine. He can play. He'll be all right. We'll limit his touches. We'll do this. We'll do that. But then when all it came down to is when he needed to play, he didn't. And because of that, you know, it's almost like Shark Tank. Because of that, I'm out. I don't want anything to do with him. I don't want anything to do with that running game. What I do want a part of right now is the Rams passing offense, because that is what is going to need to be kind of picking up the slack, because they're not going to be able to run the ball as well. I mean, they'll still have their chances, and they're still a very good offense. And I think they'll mix Gurley in to see how well he holds up. And they'll have Henderson. They have Malcolm Brown. They have a lot of stuff, but I don't want to touch that because I can't count on who that's going to be all the time. And if even in a third round, I don't want to take a chance. When I have a choice between a third round Kerryon Johnson or Marlon Mack, and I have it between that and Todd Gurley, I'm going to take those other two guys because I know that they're the main players. They're the main guys who are going to get, you know, the 15, 20 touches in those offenses, which are both pretty good. I just don't want to take a chance that Gurley isn't as healthy as we think, and he becomes this year's Andrew Luck. And then I'm sitting there holding the bag with a third round pick that's getting maybe he plays, maybe he doesn't from week to week, and we can't guess. It just scares me.
Yes, yeah, I don't get that. First of all, both Mack and Kerryon Johnson dealt with injuries last year.
Sure they did.
Mack on a pretty consistent basis. I like Mack, don't get me wrong.
Right.
When he stepped on the field, especially with that O-line playing as good as it did, he looked great, especially when the center was healthy, and I can't think of his name right now. Sorry about that.
That's right.
But when he was healthy and on the field, Mack was a beast, no doubt. But again, you know, injury concerns. Guys around where Gurley going now, I mean, you got Cook, injury concern. Fournette, injury concern. I mean, I don't understand this. I just don't get, while everybody's bailing on this guy, just they know what they have now. They didn't really know before it happened that it happened. You know, he took that big hit, his knee swelled up. They did all the work on it. Then they found out that there was arthritis in there. And, of course, you know, they didn't really have enough time to get it back to where they needed to. Now they know what they're dealing with. And they're so much smarter about this stuff nowadays that I just, man, I will take him from the second round on every week. Every time.
The question, Jim, is does an arthritic knee ever get better? This is not like a surgery, like an ACL where you repair it and you recover and you can become 100%. This is never going to get better. So how do you sit there and have any faith in a guy in the third round as your RB2 when you don't know if let's say he runs well 1 week and he does get 20 touches and he blows up and he has a great week. How do we know that knee doesn't blow up and he doesn't play it all the next week?
How do we know that about any player?
Well,
anywhere?
I know. You always have
a couple of years ago. I mean, like David Johnson coming off that magnificent year in 2016, everybody jumps on him as the first pick in the draft in 2017, and he goes out with a freak hand injury. He's out for the season.
Right.
Last year, everybody's still grabbing Le'Veon Bell in the first round. Man doesn't play all season. You got risk with all of these guys. I'm going to take a home run hitter who's been a home run hitter. Maybe he's got some arthritis. It may knock him down in a dynasty league draft for me. But in a redraft, man, this year, I just don't have that qualm. I don't have that worry at all.
What scares you guys more, arthritis or like a bone-on-bone injury?
Well, bone-on-bone is absolutely worse.
Okay, so
arthritis can lead to bone-on-bone.
No,
but bone-on-bone is worse.
The reason I'm asking is because what is arthritis? It's inflammation, right? I'm willing to gamble that with the age, what I started out the whole thing by saying he'll just be 25 in August. He's got that going for him. He's got that on his side. With everything we have about modern medicine, I feel comfortable that they will find a way to contain the inflammation and make it as tolerable for him as possible. I mean, it's not like he's coming back from the ACL injury last year. So there's not a Darius Guy situation, something to that effect. Is it good? No, it's not good. Is it horrible? No. I think there are far worse injuries or far worse, symptoms that we could be discussing than an arthritic knee at 24 going on 25 is what I'm getting at. So I think we're all in agreement. There's some over concern and too much hype going on. But this, again, this is June. So does that level out? Is he back in the first round? Come August? I don't know.
I think he goes down. So. I think he goes further down because he won't be on the field.
Right.
And people not seeing him in preseason.
Right.
They'll freak out.
Yeah. Until week one comes. Yeah.
So I know a lot of people like Bob. They just don't want to touch him, and I'm telling you,
that's fine.
If I can get it anywhere in the second round I'm going to take the guy every time. I just think people are just overreacting. Can I be wrong? Absolutely, we can be wrong about every single player we talk about. But
well, you know what? Let me ask you real quick before we move on. You just said he's going in the third right now. You just said you think he goes further to even the fifth. You said second and on. When do you feel like you got to pull the trigger? If you see the ADP is, in the fifth round, fourth round, are you taking him in the second so you don't lose him? Or are you going to try to push it a little? And when are you taking him?
Well, if it goes anywhere near the fifth round, then I'll wait till the third round and grab him. Okay. But right now, let's say he's going in, beginning of the third round. If you have picked, in the beginning of the second round, 201, 202, through 206. If you don't take him there, you're not going to get him. So if you want him, that's the place. If you have that pick in that range, that's where you have to take him, because there's no way he's coming all the way back around to the end of the third, at least not right now. As we get further on and people start freaking out because he's not on the field, which we have already talked about, then I think that, it pushes it back a little bit. Then you can reevaluate it. But right now, if he's going in the beginning of the third and you have an early second round pick and want him, that's where you have to take him.
I think his value will change based on Henderson's preseason. If Henderson runs wild in preseason, and that'll just push him further down. But if Henderson's okay, it really is, just a marginal rookie and doesn't show a lot of flash, then I think he stays where he's at. But if Henderson kicks in, then you'll really see a change, because you'll see Henderson skyrocket up, and you'll see him start to drop a little bit, and it'll be interesting. I'm with you, Jim. I understand everything you're saying. It's just that, man, risk. I just don't like risk in the first three rounds, and I know all of them have it. They all have it. I get it.
So I was just about to say. So you take wide receivers in all three rounds.
Oh, I certainly
all your drafts, right?
I've done 3 straight wide receivers. It's not uncommon this year for me, because I have other guys later in the 4th and 5th round running back wise that I'm perfectly comfortable with being 1 and 2.
And I agree with that. There's plenty of that around. I agree with that as well. But
I'm just not sure.
I can't get past the fact that I think he's great value anywhere in the second round. So that's just how I'm looking at it, dealing with it right now. Yeah, and again, I could be wrong. I still like Dalvin Cook. But again, you're talking about a guy who missed 17 games in his first 2 years. So,
right, I got you.
Fournette, another one. I don't like Fournette, but a lot of people do, and he's a guy you got to deal with soft tissue injuries every year. So,
his soft tissue's in his head, though.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to
say. You can't fix stupid.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say
that's
stupid.
What I always say. He gets the 2 eyes: injury and idiocy.
All right, I got you.
I wouldn't go so far as going stupid. I would just say I completely question his motivation ever since he's become, and it's before he left LSU too.
Right.
When he started sitting out, and all of a sudden you're like, what, and he wasn't sitting out like in a McCaffrey kind of way. He was sitting out like in I know I'm the best. I know I'm the shit, so I'm just gonna sit out. And it's just his motivation more than anything.
Yeah.
Okay, so next up on the news thing is. I got to talk about this. It's probably the tight end to own in Indianapolis is not being talked about. Mr. Mo Alley Cox, take front and center. And of course, I'm being facetious for those of you who can't tell.
God, I hope so. I'm like, are you related to him? What the hell?
But they came out this week, and he's looking great in OTAs and the t-shirts and shorts. Look, I like him. He showed a couple flashes last year that he's got good ability. He can go up and get a ball. He can fight for it. But he's got 2 pretty good tight ends in front of him. One just coming off a 13 touchdown season. The other one 2 years ago had 70 receptions. So. you know, I love this time of year when these kind of people get pushed up and everybody's like, oh man, this kid is going nuts. But, I'll start with you, Bob. Are you going to own any shares of Mo Alley Cox?
I'm going to draft him right after Devontae Parker because he is having a hell of a preseason. God, this guy is off the charts. I cannot wait to get so many shares of Devontae Parker. No, I don't want. I don't want either one of them.
And the thing that kills me about Parker is that every time we hear this, which is pretty much every
summer,
exactly. There's always people out there saying this is going to be year, this is going to be the year. You got to own this guy this year.
Yeah.
You know what? Take your chances, folks. Good luck with it. How about you, Andy? What's your thoughts on Mo Alley Cox?
Yeah, I opened up a can of worms on Twitter today by talking about the Colts' fourth tight end, Devin Funchess. So I just don't know where there's enough volume for all of these guys to for any one of them to feed with that, injury or anything like that. I think Mo Alley Cox, I'd feel comfortable in a best ball scenario where maybe he could get me 2 touchdowns in a week or something like that. But on a week in, week out basis, am I really feel comfortable starting him? So I would say no. So I'm going to look to avoid that. But I was a former college basketball player, so I'm rooting for him. I would like to see it with his background. I think there must have been like a 3-on-3 tournament with the beat writers, and he was just dunking on everybody. And that's why the news is coming out that this is the breakout year for Mo Alley Cox. There's just too much going on at the tight end position.
I swear,
Indianapolis. You know what?
I swear, I got to say this. I swear, I just heard him say you was a former basketball player, college basketball player. I'm like, wait a minute, Andy was? And I'm like, oh, he was talking about Mo Alley. Okay, fine.
No, I was too. I played D1.
Oh, really? Okay, cool.
Yeah, 94 to 96.
There you go. Yeah, I'm not even going to get into the height issue. Okay.
Okay.
But hey, look, we got to realize though, even though Ebron had 13 touchdowns last year, the combination of Mo Alley Cox and Eric Swoop had 5 touchdowns. So there is a little something there for somebody extra.
But that was because Jack Doyle wasn't around too.
And you're probably right. But Doyle has never really been that touchdown guy. He's more the PPR guy, the guy you want to get the 6-7 receptions, maybe 60 yards. He doesn't really do much in the red zone, which is where Ebron comes in. So I'm just saying they have ways to find it. Plus, we don't know if Doyle is going to stay healthy or he could have a setback, and all of a sudden Mo Alley Cox is laughing at us because we know he's listening to our podcast.
Oh, I'm sure he is.
So he's probably calling all his friends and putting it on Twitter now that we're
texting me right now
because we don't trust him.
He's texting me right now.
Dear Andy, I ddidn't know you played college basketball.
Really.
Neither did Bob.
And I didn't either.
That's what I responded.
So let's talk up the next piece of news. A lot of people talking about Dante Pettis. Look, I like Dante Pettis. I thought, he didn't have the greatest year as a rookie, but he did some really nice things. Right now, they're looking to see who's going to be their number 1 wide receiver. Now we're hearing he's put on some bulk and, he's trying to strengthen up his body. And, I'll go to you first, Bob. What's your thoughts on Dante Pettis? Somebody you want, somebody you don't want? What are you looking at with him?
I like him. The thing that I liked was that end of the last year, he earned 4 clutch games out of the last 6 of the year. So I always like to look for those guys, especially these younger guys that kind of finally get into their role and get into the groove and put up those consistent games in the second half of the year. That always kind of tells me this is when you're going to see him kind of break out the next year. Now, granted, Garoppolo wasn't in that mix for a lot of that, but he's definitely really the only number one guy they got now. I like him. I'd like to get him as my wide receiver 3. Really like to get him as my wide receiver 4. Obviously he's got the upside to be a 3. But I like Pettis. I'll grab him where I can. His ADP is I think around pick 85. So I'm decent with that.
Actually, he's been going lately on the FFWC best ball ADP. He's been going in the 6th round.
Ooh,
at the end of the 6th, beginning of the 7th round. Look, you got to pay for him if you want him now because the hype is there. People are believing. But, he's going right in the same range as Corey Davis, Will Fuller. I'm trying to look at some other names.
I definitely would take him over those guys. Yeah. I'd be good over those guys.
I don't know. I kind of like Corey Davis a little bit this year, a little bit more than I did last year. I was worried about him last year just because I didn't think they had anybody else to take pressure off. Now I think they do. I don't think they're going to be able to really, drop so much coverage on Corey Davis now that they brought in rookie A.J. Brown, who is one of my favorite rookie wide receivers in this class, and then brought in Adam Humphries as well. If they get Delaney Walker back and fully healthy, they're going to have plenty of weapons in that passing game, which is not going to allow defenses to always have, dropping two guys on top of Corey Davis, either in an over and under or, just double teaming him at all, pretty much all the time. They're not going to be able to do that. So I like Corey Davis a little bit to really take that next step forward, as long as Mariota can actually, stay healthy and play good ball. This is a contract year for him. He's got to do it this year. Otherwise, he's going to be looking for work next year. Any last thoughts before we move on?
Yeah, I didn't get any first thoughts. You keep going.
Okay, well,
Bob.
then there you go. Well, Bob's
No,
our
he's so
guest.
rude. He acts like this is my guest or something.
No. Well, if you go back and watch what John and I talked about 2 years ago with Dante Pettis, labeled him the prototypical wide receiver too, just for his ability. His route running is precise. He's great in the return game. Just didn't see that alpha in him. But as a two, ideal. It's what you want. So I'm happy with where he is now. But to feel comfortable with taking him, and he's going 72 right now. Looking at our ADP, I think it's fair if you want to believe in it. Maybe there's some upside to that, but I see two names in that same range. One a couple picks ahead, one a couple picks behind that I feel much more comfortable with, and that's Ty Hill at 68. If you get over the whole moral clause attached to that, I feel like he's going to be suspended probably at least 6 games. But we know what he is. He's a dynamic win your league wide receiver one week in and week out. So I'd feel safer taking Tyreek Hill at 68 than Pettis at 72 and just stashing and waiting for him to come around. Now, I know there's some gamble attached to that. But if I miss out on either of them, Sterling Shepard sitting there at 79 in that range, I really feel like there's a very, very, very safe floor with Shepard and that potential for a higher ceiling this year. So I'd be all in on both of those guys before Dante Pettis. And that's not to say I don't like Pettis. I just don't think he's what everybody wants to project him taking the next step.
Fair enough. It's always good to have somebody on the show who's wrong. Let's talk about Matt Stafford playing all of 2018 with a broken back. And Andy, I'll go to you first. What's your thoughts on Matt Stafford playing with a broken back?
Should have went to Bob first because I got nothing on this. No, listen, Matthew Stafford is tough, man. We know this guy's good. I mean, the Jets obviously screwed this one up, trading up for Mark Sanchez instead of Stafford that same year. But I mean, I feel like people are just tired of him. I just feel like they're just done with him. Like, been there, done that. He's been around so long. Kind of like Phillip Rivers. Like, there's nothing really exciting about Matthew Stafford, but to know what he did last year and be, competent. I mean, it wasn't his best year, but it wasn't his worst year, or maybe it was his worst year. I'm not looking at stats, but didn't feel like his worst year. Didn't feel like he was awful. He didn't, let you down and disappoint.
He was like 27th or something. 25th.
All right. So it was. I mean. You didn't. I don't think you drafted him to be your QB1 last year. Let's put it like that. You drafted him as your backup or in a super flex league as your second quarterback. So he was in that range of offering you kind of what you thought you were getting into bed with, And he did that with a broken back. So if he could be healthy and get back to what he's been before last year, all right, great.
And actually, I misspoke. He was 20th in 4-point passing touchdowns last year. So 20th, right behind Case Keenum.
Yeah, I was in a best ball draft recently. I think it was within the last 2 weeks. And Matthew Stafford was still sitting there, and I grabbed him as my third quarterback in round 18. That's how far he's fallen this year. Just like you said, everybody's done. They're just, he's washed up. He's, everybody's just done with him. I'm like, hell, I'll take him in a best ball league. Yeah, I'll throw him in as an extra quarterback.
That's awesome. You can have
not
Stafford.
only that, but you got Marvin Jones coming back from the injury.
Yeah.
Galladay there. You got Hawkinson there now at tight end, gives them a viable tight end they didn't have before. And of course, Kerryon Johnson, as long as he can stay fully healthy. I mean, he's an explosive running back, gives them a nice running attack as well. That'll take a little pressure off Stafford. So I'm with you. I mean, I'd take him as a late number 2. But nobody's going to take him as a starter at this point.
I'm really loving this team Bob's got going. He's got Stafford, Gurley, Devontae Parker, and Mo Alley Cox.
Yeah, exactly.
And I just wanted to check real quick. Yeah, Stafford is coming off the board at 157. So yeah, I mean, you're talking trying to do the math in my head just isn't working right now.
15th, 16th round.
Yeah, 14th round. Right, just started the 14th round. So the quarterbacks this year are kind of nuts. I was doing some work and writing an article on ADP for quarterbacks, and right now the biggest one that keeps standing out to me is Kirk Cousins, because he's coming off the board right now in these full-time fantasy best ball leagues as the 22nd quarterback taken. Now, since 2015, when he's been the full-time starter, he hasn't been below quarterback 9 at all. He's got 2 top 10 wide receivers in Thielen and Diggs. He's got a very good tight end. Now he's got 2, I think, two tight ends. For him to come off as a 22nd quarterback, to me, is crazy. It's just really just crazy. And you know what? I have a feeling that Bob has something to say on this. So, Bob, why don't you chime in?
Well, unless this is a best ball league, that doesn't mean shit. Kirk Cousins last year was 44% consistent, even though he was number 9 overall. That means less than half of the games he scored less than 20 points. If this is a league where you have to pick your starter every week and you can't just rely on the system doing it, you cannot draft Kirk Cousins. That team is all about the run game. They'll have Galvin Cooks running the ball more often than not. Really, the first part of the year was when he had his best time, when Cook wasn't playing. Once Cook got in play, everything was fine. He just pretty much disappeared and had zero consistency. I have no love for Kirk Cousins in this system whatsoever.
Well, in case you maybe didn't hear, I was referring to best ball.
Oh,
ADP.
okay. I'm sorry. I thought you said FWC, like it was you actually had to pick the starters. But even that, I know that's a little different, but
it's a lot different. Really, I mean, first of all, he hasn't finished less than 9th overall.
Right.
And again, when you're talking best ball, and Bob, I hate to say this, and you know what? I totally forgot to mention this, people. If you really want to have fun when Bob's on a show and you really want to have a good time, every time the word consistency is mentioned, take a drink. I guarantee you'll love every single freaking podcast that he's on.
I'm in.
Look, consistency is great for season-long leagues, for dynasty leagues. You want that consistency. In best ball, I could care less about consistency. I want a guy who's going to give me those peaks and those valleys. I don't care about the valleys because he's not going to be in the starting lineup that week. I want the guy that's going to give me 4, 5, 6 really big weeks, and I'll work on that. That's why you have such big rosters in best ball. That's why you pick multiple quarterbacks. And, most best ball leagues I'm in, I always have 3. Even if it's a start one, I always have 3 just for that reason, because I could take those valleys, but I want those peaks.
Right. No, I agree. And if you can take a good, solid starter, maybe in round 6 or 7, and you take, I don't know, Carson Wentz or something like that, and take Cousins and Stafford later, that would be a nice combo to have, just a bunch of very good players that can put up some big points in a week if you need them.
Okay, so let's keep going. Next up is everybody's talking about him again, so we're going to talk about him again.
Here we go. Here's another guy on my team I'm going to pick.
I saw one video of one throw from Brady to Josh Gordon, and the world flipped out. Okay. Bob's obviously got something to say, but I'm going to change it up and go to Andy. Andy, what's your thoughts on Josh Gordon this year? Are you taking any shots at Josh Gordon at all?
Yeah, I'll just say this. It was not so much the throw, it was the fact that he put out a video of them working out privately. So I think that kind of speaks to where Tom Brady's at with trying to get this additional weapon onto this team. So jury's out, to be determined. I may, take a gamble and take him as one of my final few picks, but I'm not putting too much stock into it, because even when we've seen him, in locker rooms, on the field, he still hasn't been what we've seen him be in the past, and it's just another year older at the same time. So we saw glimpses, but we've never seen it consistently drink. And yeah, I'm not going down that rabbit hole again.
Okay, but I will say this: when he was in the game with Brady, they started slow, but then as they worked together, Brady was averaging 100 yards more a game passing in the games that Gordon was on the field.
Which is why he's trying to recruit him to come back and get your head right. And if his head's right and he can do that, then great. And I'd be happy to see him playing in the NFL. I'm just saying this from as a fantasy owner. If I have a spot at the back end, especially maybe a best ball league like we've been talking about, then yeah, sure, I'll throw a dart. But as somebody that I'm looking at as like a wide receiver 3, 4, 5 in that range, not so much.
Yeah, but you don't have to draft him that way either. I mean, it's not like you have to draft him as a wide receiver 3, 4, 5.
No, you don't. I just feel like it becomes a wasted roster spot because then you're just sitting there. Nobody's going to want to offer trade value because if they had any interest, they would have drafted him themselves. So nobody's going to offer you anything for him. It just sits there that you feel like, all right, I invested. Do I wait another week? Do I drop them to pick up this guy? It just becomes, this saga. It becomes a saga.
How about you, Bob? What's your thoughts on Gordon? We know he's not consistent. Take a drink.
Yeah, exactly. As a Cleveland Browns fan, the hairs on the back of my neck stick up every time I hear Josh Gordon's going to do this. Josh Gordon's going to make it back. I used to be very supportive of this guy. I really want him to make it. I really want him to get his act together. But how long do we have to do this? I mean, I'm just so tired of hearing about every time him and Tom Brady hold hands, all of a sudden now fantasy world explodes. If he makes it, that's great. But it's kind of like it's the old story, the boy who cries wolf. I'm not listening to the boy crying anymore.
Well, I'll tell you, I look at it this way. First of all, we know the man could play the game. Is he a head case? Does he have an issue? Absolutely he does. And, a lot of people are saying that, it's a very hard issue to control. I don't particularly have that issue, so I can't really speak to that. Drug addiction has never been my thing. Food addiction is a different story, but it is what it is. So I can't really speak to what he's going through in his head. But the fact of the matter is that when he steps on the field, if he steps on the field with Tom Brady, the opportunity that presents him and us as fantasy owners could be huge. That's where everybody is getting excited. And look, it gets me excited because I can grab him, in the 22nd, 23rd round of a best ball and let him sit there. If he doesn't do nothing, what does it cost me? It doesn't cost me a damn penny. Right. A 22nd rounder, it's going to be a dart throw, whoever you take at that round anyway. Why not take the guy who has an upside that if he does step on the field, even for 12 games, could turn your team around? So to me, I get it. Believe me, I get it. Every year, every time it's like, oh, he's going to do it this year. He's going to do it this year. But look, again, for that kind of quality player, when he's on the field, and I do think he's a quality player when he's on the field, I'll take that opportunity getting him that late and stick him on my bench and hope he does something, especially in a best ball league. Especially you don't lose anything because you're not investing anything in him that late. And again, even if you only get 8 games out of him and 4 of those games are big, in the 20th round, getting 4 big games out of a wide receiver in a best ball league is still huge.
Right.
I just want to say hi to Henry Muto, our super fan of the night so far.
Yeah, Henry's great. Henry and I go way back, and like I said, he's a big player in the high stakes world. And
he's a Browns fan. Well, then Henry's my best friend now.
So let's
1979 is when he started watching football. Jim was already in his 40s at that point.
Actually, 1979 was the year I graduated high school.
Yeah, I was 2 years later.
So,
BC, he means.
Yeah, BC. Yeah, there you go. Hey, chef, cut it out. So a year, okay, but that's all the news and notes. So we're going to get back to a segment that I really like. It's called On the Clock. I'm going to give you two guys that are, relatively close in ADP right now. And you guys tell me who you like and why. And I'm going to start with flip a coin, Bob, this time.
All right.
Bob, you're on the clock. Sixth round. You think you need a tight end. Your choices are O.J. Howard or Evan Ingram. Who are you taking and why?
All right, everybody, mix a new drink. Here we go. It's all about consistency, and it's all Evan Ingram here. He's put up back-to-back 73% consistency rating in his last 2 years. Second half of last year when OBJ went down is when he really kicked it in. 4 straight clutch games at the end of the year. O.J. Howard has the potential, and he had 70% last year as well in the 10 games that he played. But there's still Cameron Brate. There's still a lot of weapons. Bruce Arians has never been a fan of tight ends, but he's got to use him here. But I'm still going to take Evan Ingram.
How about you, Andy? What's your thoughts here?
Evan Ingram, better fantasy player than O.J. Howard to this point. It's not about real world talent. It's about how they perform in fantasy for what we're talking about. And he's been more dynamic as a fantasy football tight end. So I'm easily with Ingram.
Actually, last year, O.J. Howard averaged a little bit more points per game than Ingram did.
Last year was a down year.
Well, it was what it was. Ingram missed a couple games for an injury. O.J. Howard missed a few games for injury. But O.J. Howard, scored over 12 points a game, and Ingram was 11.4. So, I get where you both are going, but to say it's very easy, I don't get that. I do get the fact that everybody's saying, oh, Arians doesn't use his tight end. Arians has never had a tight end as good as O.J. Howard is. Look, I love Evan Ingram. I'm a Giants fan. I like the guy. He had a great rookie season. I hope he can stay healthy. They should use him. But the fact of the matter is this offense has already said they're coming out. They're going to be a run-heavy offense. They do have 2 decent wide receivers in Sterling Shepard. Drawing a blank. Golden Tate. There you go. I think O.J. Howard is the pick here. Has he done as much so far as Evan Ingram has done? No. But he's got a coach that loves to throw the ball and throw it all over the field. They got a bad defense, so they'll have to throw the ball to keep in games. All of these things point me more towards O.J. Howard than they do Evan Ingram. I think that they can use Howard to go down those seams and tear up defenses down those seams. And I think they're going to do exactly that. And everybody's going to say, oh, okay, I guess Arians can use his tight end. And Arians is a smart guy. He knows his game of football. When you got a talent like that, you have to figure out a way to use him. And they're going to find a way to use him. And because they're going to be throwing the ball probably 150 more times a year than Eli and Daniel Jones might, I have to say I have to go with him there. I just think he has more opportunity. So let's go on to the next one here. The next one is up, and it is you're on the clock. We talked a little bit about these two guys already, so we're going to go past it. It was Corey Davis and Dante Pettis, but we talked about them already. So let's go to the next one. Oh, crap, we talked about that too. Miles Sanders, Jordan Howard. Holy crap, you guys got off topic already so much. So let's go to the one we didn't talk about. How about Devontae Freeman coming off the board at 34 or Aaron Jones coming off the board at 35? Bob, what's your thoughts here?
If I had a little bit more confidence in Matt LaFleur really having confidence in Aaron Jones, it might be a little bit closer. But you know what you're getting in Devontae Freeman. He's healthy. He's back. There's no Tevin Coleman. This is a high-powered offense playing in a division where there's a lot of other high-powered offenses like the Saints, the Panthers, the Bucks. I just feel like Devontae Freeman wins out here just because what you're getting. You don't have to worry about whether or not they switch all of a sudden to Jamal Williams or somebody like that in Green Bay. Hopefully they're smart enough to use Aaron Jones, but I'm not hearing it from LaFleur. I know he's probably playing it safe, but I'm going to go with the proven commodity, and that's Devontae Freeman.
Yeah, I'm going with that as well. I think people are forgetting how good Devontae Freeman is. I mean, he was bad not because of his play. He was bad because he couldn't play with the injuries. He's good. He's a better running back. Tevin Coleman's not there anymore. So Devontae Freeman, wheels up for Devontae Freeman for me. I like Aaron Jones, but I've mentioned before, I think Dexter Williams is going to get a little bit more run as the early down back in Green Bay, leaving Jones to be kind of that change of pace option, that receiving back. I think they'll play together at times, but I think Devontae Freeman is just more of the workhorse kind of guy, the guy you can, hitch your wagon to. And I think people have forgotten just how good Devontae Freeman is.
I'm with you. I'm with the Devontae Freeman as well. Look, I like Aaron Jones. We've seen him be explosive. But again, I'm with Andy here in that we're just still not guaranteed he's going to be their big-time back or the every down back. We could be looking at a committee with them or at least a timeshare as well, and that just scares me. I think he's definitely the most talented back on the team. But at this point, I just don't really have a lot of faith that they're going to keep him as the guy that a go-to guy who's going to get 16, 17, 20 touches a game. I'm just not sure they go there. So that scares me away from him. I think they do that in Atlanta. I think Freeman, again, we're talking about the injury history. We have to worry about that with anybody. So I don't really put that a lot into my analysis. I expect Freeman to play 16 games, as I do everybody. If it fails, it fails. But in 16 games, I take Freeman over Aaron Jones. What say you people in the chat room? Give us a choice. Who do you like in this situation, Aaron Jones or Devontae Freeman? Michael Stepney saying he wants to go Freeman, but it is close. Well, that's why we're talking about it, because it is close. And now this is totally off topic here, totally off this, but I did want to talk to you guys real quick about this. They're talking about making the 18-game schedule again. It looks like the NFL is really going to push for the 18-week schedule. But the one thing that I didn't realize before, I'll be honest, I didn't realize this before, is that if they go to an 18-game schedule, players can only play in 16 games.
Huh?
Yeah, that's what they're talking about. They're saying if they go to an 18-game schedule, players can only play in a max of 16 games a year.
But I didn't think they were going to do this until after the new CBA was approved, which could change that.
And it could. I'm not saying this is absolutely going to happen. I'm saying this is the thought process.
Based on the current CBA, that's how they'd have to do it.
Well, no, it's not. It's not even. It doesn't even have anything to do with the CBA. The reason they're doing this is because they don't want to have to put asterisks next to every freaking, record in the record books. They want to keep it so that all the records can stay the same. That they played 16 games.
I think is that really what it is, or is the spin coming out as this is to preserve their health and to be more health conscious? And this
that's what they're going to say, but that's not what it is.
But this is all just to cut down the preseason from 4 games to 2.
Well, they will do that as well, but no, it's really all about the money. The TV money for the NFL. There's no doubt about it.
There's not enough of it already?
No, 2 more games a week gets them a lot more money.
So is the Super Bowl now going to be in like early March?
Hey, why not? If hockey can play into freaking June, why can't football go into March?
Sure.
That's crazy.
Playing hockey in June to me is the most ridiculous freaking thing in the world. So
I have no problem taking out 2 preseason games, but I don't understand the 18 game whatever. Like I said, it's all about money.
Yeah. And it is.
It's overkill, though.
Always about money.
But no
doubt about
it. That greed is gonna at some point kill it.
Yeah. Maybe they should do those 2 extra weeks. Is none of the starters are allowed to play, and it's just backup, so it's like a preseason game anyway, and people will still pay top money.
Think about it from a coach's point of view. All of a sudden now there's 2 games a year. Like say Bill Belichick, you can't start Tom Brady.
Right. Yeah.
So it really comes down to strategize for them, where they have to pick the 2 games they think they can win without Tom Brady. Things like
Jets.
that. It really adds a lot more to the game.
Jets game.
But actually, I think the Jets are going to have a great defense this year. The offense is still a little worrisome. And Gaze, I'm not a big fan of, but I think that defense under Greg Williams is going to be
you can't be on the field every play.
Right. Well, there is that. But just think about it. But then not only that, but think about what it does, the ramifications it would have for fantasy.
Oh my God.
Because, you have to do it as well. You have to try and figure out, unless they tell us in advance who's not playing that week, you have to try and figure that out. So, I mean, this could have so many far-reaching things going on. And I hadn't heard the fact that they were thinking they could only play 16 games before.
So many other things to fix in the NFL, and this is what they worry about.
Well, they're always worrying about money, and that's what it comes down to. Okay, so we're running out of time quickly here. You guys just talk way too much.
Yeah,
so here, this is one of Andy's things he's been doing on the internet, on Twitter lately. So Andy, why don't you talk about your June flag, and so everybody understands it.
I actually didn't know we were going to go this long with all the other stuff we had. So I just put this in. I put out the other day. I got into a bunch of hot water this week because I tweeted out fantasy football should be banned from, I forgot the dates, but I think I said
on Twitter or on social media.
Whatever. It was like April.
Yeah, everybody hated for that one.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. But it was more just about the there's just been so much pettiness going on. It seems like just people are bored, so it's like everybody's attacking each other as this fantasy football space continues to grow on social media. So it was more just to that tone that I said it, because of course we're going to talk about football year round, and I'm one of the guys that does it. So but I said, so it seems to be claim your guy season. So it's basically planting your June flag, and there are a bunch of responses. So we can get into that if you want, but as we're coming up to the end of time here, if you guys want to talk about the other thing I wanted to discuss, which was the trade etiquette thing, because that's fresh in my mind. I get I'm getting all sides of the coin with this one, as far as trades, basically to kind of give the backstory.
Okay, well let's go for it. Go for it. Talk about it.
All right. So
obviously, I can't stop you anyway, so go for it.
No, you can. You can.
No, just teasing. Go ahead. Tell everybody what happened. What'd you do?
The backstory was a Major League Baseball player got suspended today. The news came out about 4:30, 5 o'clock, and I submitted a trade proposal with that guy who was on my roster, and the other owner about a half hour, an hour later, accepted that trade. And now people are telling me that was a douchey move, but this is a money league. We're playing for money. We're being competitive. I didn't have any advanced knowledge that this guy didn't have. He could easily have checked the internet. He could have saw the trade come in and say, let me go back and just verify I want to do this before I click accept. I mean, I could see how you could say shady or whatever the case is, but I didn't force anybody into this. I didn't pull the wool over anybody's eyes. I didn't have somebody, from Major League Baseball office call me and saying, hey, get this guy off of all your fantasy teams because he's getting suspended in another 2 hours. So, I mean, to me, it's fair game. So I'm curious with that backstory, what your guys' take is on this. Was that, is that douchey or shady in your mind, Jim?
You dick. No, so
well, we know how Bob feels.
That was the first thing that popped in my mind was Fast Times at Ridgemont High and Spicoli saying that. You dick. You know what? I see both sides of it, but like you said, we all have the internet. We all have access. And, if you play in a very competitive league where everybody's trying to get an edge and you put out something like that, and somebody's dumb enough to accept it immediately, that's their fault. You can call it what you want on your side, but you know what? Let's be honest. How many times in the real sports world do guys get traded and, the trade,
they do have to go through a physical or something.
Yeah, they do, but sometimes they know a little bit more than the physical even shows. And, you find out a couple, the next season, this guy has this. But again, they have doctors and they can, it's a whole different story. But, if you did it to me, I'd probably laugh like, okay, you got me because that's my fault. I should know better. But
I wouldn't laugh.
Yeah.
First thing that would happen is I'd never trade with you again. Ever.
Yeah, well, that too.
But I got to ask the guy you traded away who had the 80-game suspension now was on a roll, right? He was going nuts. He was pitching outstanding. what did you get back for him? Did you take a lesser guy?
It's about equal. It's about equal. The guy just came back from a back injury, and he's already on the injured list again with the sprained ankle, but not expected to be serious. He's 2 years older. This is a dynasty league, so I mean, it's not like it was. I gave away that zero to get this complete steal.
See, that changes things is the fact that it's a dynasty, because this is a guy that he can keep. That changes things for me, because now, while you still were kind of doing something a little sneaky, he can still keep them forever. It's not like that, okay, now this guy's not going to play the rest of the year and it was a complete wasted trade. If it's a dynasty and he maybe he even knew that the guy was hurt, or
well, he's saying now he didn't. And they're saying and the
I could also be trying to save face.
Yeah. Oh, the other owners. The other,
right.
I mean, I won last year. I broke every record in this league last year. I'm on my way to repeating this year. I'm in first place. So all the other owners
like a humble brag to me.
It is. But all the other owners that are
well, maybe not so humble,
competing with me, and they all treat me like assholes anyway. So the commissioner just told me.
Well, that's because you make moves like this.
Well, the commissioner told me 2 weeks ago.
Because you're the New England Patriots.
He offered me a ridiculous trade, and I said, "Why would I do that? That makes no sense." And he goes, "Well, maybe you should look for another league then." And he started and he started talking like cursing at me and stuff. And I said, "Whoa! I've been civil to you this whole time." And then he comes back and goes, "Oh, I didn't know you were that soft." And I'm like, "Wow, really?
Jeez.
Like you're really fucking sticking it to me." So now he's the one that accepted this trade.
Oh, well, then he deserves it. Never mind.
Well, that's
all
good.
It's all good. I agree.
And that's what I put out there on Twitter. I said, I did this expecting him to decline it and just to kind of be a dick and be like, here's a guy I know you were interested in. And I didn't think he was going to expect it. I put it on Twitter. And then one of the guys who apparently must follow me is taking my tweets and putting them in the league chat. Like telling, mommy on me. And I'm like, well, what kind of a fucking kiss up are you? Like, this is crazy.
Exactly.
So it's just whatever. So the commissioner goes, well, I didn't know, but I guess I'm happy with it because I still believe in him, but I'm tired of these headaches. So this is the last year you'll be in this league. Like, that's what he's telling me. So you know what? Exactly. Fuck all you guys.
Yeah, exactly. Win the league, take their money, and then
go find another league, really.
Exactly.
Okay, so I don't want to go an hour and 20 minutes like we have the first two episodes, but we had a couple of questions come in today on Twitter directed at you, Bob. They wanted to get your thoughts here. What do you make of Jalen Samuels? And this is from Stephen Warbington on Twitter, Stephen Warbing 1.
I mean, Jalen Samuels did a really nice job last year filling in when James Conner went down. I really like him as the handcuff. He really needs to be a handcuff to James Conner. Don't read in too much to James Conner's comments about the team working together, sharing carries because they have such a great running game. That's him just being a team guy. That's a typical, hey, we're working hard. We take it one day at a time. Crap cliches you hear in every interview. I can't imagine the Steelers are really sitting there thinking that they're going to let James Conner share 50-50 with Jalen Samuels. I just don't believe that. I think Conner was just being the team guy and saying that everybody's really working hard and we're all going to be a good team. And, it makes sense if they want to share. That's just him being, that's him saying it. Remember that. That's him saying it, not the team, not the owners, not the coaches. That's him. So I think Jalen Samuels is a very good player, but I think handcuff is the best spot for him at this point. Don't overthink that comment.
How about you, Andy? Anything to throw in here?
No, we talked about this last week. We basically, the feeling was unless James Conner's injured, then he's going to be getting 85% of the touches. So I don't want to be caught holding the bag with Jalen Samuels short of an injury. And I love Jalen Samuels. Not as big on Benny Snell, but I agree with you. We went over this, don't necessarily believe what Conner's saying. He's just playing nice right now.
Right, and we had this argument with them last week that it came right. I think it was Adam Wild who was saying, well, it came right from the players. Shouldn't we take that more than what we see from beat writers? And No, I don't think so. I still don't think so.
No, because they want to say what makes, if they're a typical young player like him, he's not an Antonio Brown. He can't run his mouth and say all kinds of crap about the team players around because, he's still in his second year, third year. He wants to say what's the right thing to say for the team. That's what he said, that they're all very good players. They're all going to work hard to make the Steelers the best, blah, blah, blah. We'll share carries. If that's just leave that stuff go, ignore those things, and just pick James Conner second round. If you can get him as an RB2, that's great. He's going to be a very good value, and he's very consistent.
Yeah, and I agree with all that. So one last question again from Steven. Do you think Josh Rosen will pan out, and is he worth an investment, Bob?
I'm not feeling it. I mean, he might get his act together. To be honest with you, I really think he'll just become another Ryan Tannehill. He'll be a decent starting quarterback, but I don't think he's ever going to be a great fantasy quarterback. And if you're talking about fantasy purposes, no, he's not worth it.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same feeling. What about you? I liked him. I actually would have liked the Giants to go get him. With a second round pick as opposed,
maybe around him, maybe in a better coaching system. Like I could see him going to like New England to be the backup to Brady and learn from the best, that he might fill in and be a very good player. But it's not going to happen in Miami.
Yeah, and I agree with that. Any thoughts? Any last second thoughts, Andy, on this?
Yeah, he's got Devontae Parker to throw the ball to. Of course,
well, I better draft him.
And Kenny Stills.
Yeah,
his skill set. He can run, but he's not a scrambler. So his skill set was not keen for Arizona, and I would say Miami's line not fantastic, but better than what Arizona's was. I think he's in a better situation for him. I think he's a better quarterback than what he got made out to be after a poor rookie year.
That. Absolutely agree with that. So, I think he's a lot better quarterback than that the whole team looked like last year.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Steven, we think there's something there. Well, actually, Andy and I do. Bob says stay the freak away. Andy and I think there's something there, but who knows how long it may take to develop, especially in Miami. They're not really known for developing quarterbacks, even though their ex-coach was called a quarterback whisperer. Go figure. So, folks, that'd be another episode of the Fantasy Football Champs After Dark. We are a proud member of the Full-Time Fantasy Podcast Network. I am your host, Jim Day. Let's go to our guest real quick. Bob, again, tell everybody where they can find you, what you got going on, and tell them about the Midwest Expo.
You got it. So lots of stuff going on. Of course, the Fantasy Football Consistency Guide. If you are a hard copy kind of person, just go to Amazon, search on 2019 Fantasy Football Consistency Guide. You can buy it there. And then you can come back and get the VIP at the website for only $10. It's a great deal. And of course, that's Big Guy Fantasy Sports. What Jim is talking about, if you live anywhere near Canton, Ohio, and that's Northeast Ohio for those of you who are not familiar with maps. So Pittsburgh, Columbus, Canton, Akron, Cleveland, Detroit, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, all of those are within like 2 to 4 hours from Canton, Ohio. We are having on Sunday, August 18th, a Fantasy Football Expo. 30 experts, actually 30 plus experts will be there. We have a live podcast stage. This is from noon to 6 that day. The event center we're having it at is only 2 miles from the Pro Football Hall of Fame. It's going to be great. Full-Time Fantasy is right now the title sponsor. We're really excited to have them on board, and this will be a great day. So make sure you get to it. Come down. If you go to the website, which is MidwestFFExpo.com, use the code Big Guy. When you go and buy your tickets, it'll save you $5. That means it's only $15 to get in the door. And the swag bag alone is going to be filled with coupons. I know they're going to give away some FFWC stuff, coupons for that to save you money to get into those contests. You're going to more than pay for that with those alone. We'll have the fantasy consistency guides, all kinds of great stuff. So that is Sunday, August 18th, Canton, Ohio.
Excellent. And then Mr. Andy. How you doing, Andy? Tell everybody where they can find you, what you got going on.
Yeah, I got a lot going on. The best place to find me is just on Twitter at People's Pen, People's with the Z. Search Andy Singleton. Just look for my name, and it'll come up. I'm doing this. Obviously, I'm doing a lot of baseball stuff. I'm probably going to be looking for some new leagues to join in the near future. So if you have any high stakes fantasy baseball leagues, let me know. Somebody had
You're
asked.
going to join high stakes baseball leagues now?
No, I'm saying for next year. I'm not going to have a home. I'm going to take my prize money from this league and put it in somewhere else.
There you go. All right.
Somebody was asking in the mailbag when are DWG invites going out. It's not necessarily
that question
that they're going out. I snuck it in there at the bottom. It's not necessarily if they're going out. Both Jim and Bob are in the Draft with Giants. This year will be the 5th. It's basically a best ball version of the Fishbowl. Will be up to 230 participants. The drafts are in August, so after the Fishbowl's already drafted and done. But you can just send an email to draftwithgiants@gmail.com and just put DWG5 pre-reg if you want to get in. So there's not really invites going out yet, but there you go. That's the update.
Draft with Kings.
Giants.
Drafted Giants.
Oh,
how many did you have last year, Andy? And what are you going from to 2?
215? 215?
So you're going from 215
no,
to 230?
Sorry, 192.
Okay.
And that was 16 divisions of 12, and I figured I could up it to 16 divisions of 15, which is 230.
All right, so we'll have to get some contests and stuff to get some invites. You know, maybe we will force them to come to the expo or something.
Sounds good.
Cool. Okay, folks, that'll be it for us tonight. I do want to thank Bob for joining us, Andy for not working tonight and being on the show. We definitely appreciate that. And for those of you who don't know, Andy's a firefighter, so he has a real job.
Yes, he does.
And that is definitely one of those jobs I consider a real job.
Yeah.
It's a crazy job. I could never do it. So kudos for that. We thank you for your service. But
hey, can I just real quick, since you just brought that up, sorry, I know you want to get off this,
right ahead.
But it's been getting a lot of.
We're going to go for an hour and 20 minutes now.
It's been getting a lot of publicity lately, and a lot of people picking up on some of the tweets I've been posting in the Facebook, especially. So I just want to thank John Stewart. He's not on social media, but John Stewart's been a real hero for the 9/11.
Yes, community. I watched that video the other day of him. Wow, if that doesn't touch you, man.
Yeah,
that boy is
I didn't
really bringing it to Congress or whoever they're talking to.
And he has no agenda. It's completely all just from the heart. So he really means a lot to us, and we appreciate that. And we've been in the news lately. A lot of firefighters and cops, 9/11 community, and just want to say thank you to John Stewart because he's of course listening to this with Mo. Cox, right?
Yeah. They're probably at the same bar.
Right.
Drinking every time to say consistency.
Okay, folks, that'll be it for us tonight. Again, thanks, Bob. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you.
Hopefully, Frank will be back next week. We'll see where we go from there. And, folks, we're out of here. Don't forget, follow the Full-Time Fantasy Podcast Network. So many great podcasts on it now. So much good information. So many hours a week of programming. It isn't funny. So make sure you're following the podcast network and follow, the guys over at Full-Time Fantasy as well. Great website, great leagues at playffwc.com. Anything you can want. Best ball, dynasty, regular redraft, all different costs from $35 up to, $1,799 if you want to play in the big boy and win the big money like Henry Muto does or tries to. He's won those big checks before. Checks are a lot bigger than I've ever seen. So, it's definitely out there for you. You just got to go out there and play in them. So give them a shot. Tell them we sent you. We're out, folks. We'll talk to you next week.